Now, I don't do a lot of dating content, but something came up in a session today that I want to talk about on here. It's something I've started affectionately calling the tyranny of the red flags. And what I'm talking about here is how we all have this social construct idea of red flags in relationships. How in the dating phase, you're supposed to be identifying red flags and knowing what to do with them when you see them. I just watched a creator a second ago say, leave at the first red flag. Okay, not a bad take, but here's the problem with this idea. And really just kind of the idea of red flags in general. The silent, unspoken part of this whole idea is that it's our job to see the red flags and leave. And if we don't, then we get what's coming to us. And I see people struggle with that in therapy for years after the breakup, after the relationship's even over. Why didn't I see them? Do I see them now? Why didn't I think they were a big deal at the time? And there's this guilt about or this dysfunctionality, what's wrong with me that I didn't see them? And don't get me wrong, some of that, insight, that looking, that's useful, that's great. But this overwhelming idea that you're supposed to spot them all, and if you don't, you're the one to blame. It's just another variation of victim blaming, really. Because you didn't see it as a red flag at the time, and you let it keep going, you're to blame for the fact that your boyfriend was picked up in a city parking lot getting it on with somebody. No. Your boyfriend was to blame. And the only way that this is really useful is if we spend the time in therapy to talk about what happened to you in the past. What did your parents teach you? What did society teach you? What did romance teach you about why you were painting those red flags white? Why were you excusing them or waiting on them or going, maybe I don't really know what I know? Because the thing is the point in time in which you first saw that red flag, you couldn't act on it for some reason. Usually, it's because you've been taught not to trust your own feelings, not to feel as though you deserve to have boundaries or to deserve to have a certain level of treatment. So when you see something that makes you go, oh, I don't know about that, you are taught to ignore that feeling.
What do you guys think? So far, kind of what I'm understanding, you've seen this video of Jesus, so correct me if I'm off. So she's saying that people who are blaming the people in these type of situations where they get into a relationship with someone and immediately they see the red flags and continue on in the relationship with them, and you have people who blame them it's your fault for them cheating on you, it's your fault for this happening, and she's kind of arguing you shouldn't blame somebody for not paying attention when you acknowledge that there were red flags at the beginning of your relationships, and you should kind of take the time to understand why, to take a quote of hers, why did you paint those red flags white? Is that kind of what she's trying to go for?
In a sense, yes. At least from what I believe. I think it's in a sense of when you saw those red flags, right? Sometimes to you, right, in that time, in that situation, those red flags could have been white, could have been neutral. You could have been they did this, but it's whatever, Whereas in the long run, right, you start to realize that no, this bothers me and stuff like that. She's saying, why do we put the blame on the person who has been seeing those signs, right? But they're not actually registering them as red flags. Why do we blame them? Why do we put them as why do we blame the victim?
Like she said, it's another form of victim blaming.
Yeah.
For me, I agree and disagree with what she's saying, because I feel that you shouldn't. No one's perfect. So the fact that someone is sitting up here on their high horse and blaming another person for, why everyone in this who has dated in this room can say they saw red flags, whether it was at the beginning or during or at the end of their relationship, and for whatever reason it didn't register. Because see, logically, it's easier to understand something and see something than it is to believe it. sometimes it's within us, I feel, that you don't want to believe the worst in people, or you don't, you fall in love, or you feel some type of way about the person, or maybe it's a friendship or whatever it is, and you want to believe the best in somebody, because trust is, it's a very fragile thing, and it's something real hard to obtain with a relationship.
And that's also, I think, another thing that she's also saying. It's like, why at the time maybe like you didn't trust yourself in those moments. You didn't like really believe that was going to be an issue, that even was an issue.
Well, just to add on, I also feel it's this whole concept that society kind of brainwashed everyone to be, oh, don't judge the cover by the book, or oh, understand they're going through things, Yes, that makes sense, understand, but that does not justify you shutting off your basically flight or fight response because you're trying to be understanding, or you're trying to give that person an opportunity. Oh, no, they're not always like that, so it's just a one-off thing. No, it's not. If they did it once, that means they're gonna do it twice.
And that's also the thing to add on. Like, she touches on how family dynamics and we were taught as kids from adults how that can affect our like future, like friendship-wise or romance-wise. It's like you live with an adult who, like, for example, doesn't respect your boundaries, right? And you grow up, like, let's say, not knowing how to properly communicate your boundaries, or allowing someone else to disrespect your boundaries. And that's just because you grew up with an adult who disrespected your boundaries. So it's like, how are you gonna like see those red flags as red flags when your entire life you didn't know that was a red flag? And that also goes on to the fact that sometimes we don't trust our guts. Sometimes we don't. And it does add on to like what you said too. It's like we tell ourselves, no, don't judge a book by its cover, I'm sure they'll change or whatever. It's like at the end of the day, if you feel something constantly, right, then that's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I would say that compassion that you feel for people, where you're enabling and tolerating when they're hurting you, or they're lying to you, and you're ignoring that feeling within your gut, that same compassion that you have towards those people needs to be reversed. Because we're all going to make mistakes. How many times you're going to make mistakes until it finally registers with you that this is not the person, the right person for you to be with, or this is not the right relationship. I don't know how many times that's going to take. I do think that, especially if someone, whether it's a family member or a loved one, the approach should be different than judging them or blaming them, because that's not going to help the person. They're going to feel guilty, they're going to feel ashamed and shut down and get defensive. That's not going to help them, because guess what? Fine, they leave this one relationship, but then the cycle is going to continue. They're just going to get into another toxic relationship. It's more about helping them to understand, why. Not this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Why is it bad? Why are you accepting these type of treatments? Why are you putting your trust in people and not trusting your own self?
It's a funny thing that you say why, because I saw the other day, someone talk about how they talked to a neuroscientist, right? And that neuroscientist said that the worst thing you can do sometimes to yourself is ask why, because that opens up like other questions, right? And it's like a snowball effect, where it's like you can't get out of it by asking why. Instead, you should say, I don't like the fact that this person keeps saying this to me. I don't like the fact that this person makes me feel neglected in some type of way. Because then at least you have a center point for one, the emotion that you're feeling, and then you can go on to two, is like either what can I do to help myself in this situation, or how can I go about it?